y'all watching this video, just happened to come across it. And if you listen to these individuals try to explain 10 lost tribes, uh, 12, 12 tribes and 10 lost tribes, man, that you're going to be pure crazy. And man, it's like a city slicker, a city slicker coming to a little country town. And then the little country people trying to that ain't never been to no big city trying to explain they game and how they got it popping. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like how they come off. You know, like some lost, confused, uh, 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 people that don't know nothing what's going on. But to a city schlucker, you know what I'm saying? They sound crazy. Is I don't know what they like some country bumpkins. You know what I'm saying? And what they teaching is Jewish history. You see what I'm saying? See, it's a such thing as Jewish history and Hebrew Israelite history. See, Jewish history is going to be all the books, all the history outside the Tanakh. All the history outside the Tanakh is going to be Jewish history. Okay, check this out. To show you that, it wasn't no 10 lost tribes and how these brothers is kind of crazy in a sense. When you know truth and you can see truth plainly. You know what I'm saying? You're going to see how ridiculous these groups sound when they trying to push a 10 lost tribes doctrine. First of all, we got to go and do some research. You got to research biblical history. You got to research Tanakh history, because if you just rely upon somebody to tell you what happened to us in our history, then they gonna be off, and they gonna be off sometime for a purpose. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to keep telling lies. You know what I'm saying? The truth you just only state one time, but a lie just ever evolving and stuff, and that's how the history that these groups teach, the camps is what they call them. You see what I'm saying? See, this the Hebrew Israelite Brotherhood. We are not a camp. You see what I'm saying? We are some brothers that done got together and then did some research on our history. Okay, if you go to Second Chronicles chapter 30, Second Chronicles chapter 30, you will see that this was written about 715 BC. This is like 7 years after the Assyrians had did what they did, took the fruit fighting tribes to help them during the Babylonian wars that they was having with Babylon. They come and got our fighters, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, and took them off to help them fight and stuff. And they eventually come home. I'm going to tell you about that later on. It's called the satire history of Egypt. Okay, if you read Second Chronicles chapter 30, you'll see that we're dealing with King Hezekiah. And as you read, he'll tell you how he sent a letter to all the tribes to try to get them to come to the Passover dinner that, we was having in Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? And then as you read down, and then you get to verse 6. Verse 6, so the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remain of you that are escaped out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. Okay, and then as you read, you'll see that he started to mention the tribes. See, he started to mention the tribes that escaped the Assyrians. As you get down to verse 10, you'll see, so the post passed from city to city throughout all the country of Ephraim, Manasseh, even unto Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. Now, this is 7 years after the Syrians supposed to have took everybody away. What false history teach. You know what I'm saying? And then as you read, verse 11, Second Chronicles, verse 11, you'll see that it says, Nevertheless, diverse of Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. And then as you read, you keep on reading, he'll tell you, you know, What happened when he sent the letter throughout all Israel and Judah. He even named our inheritance from Dan to Beersheba. But as you read down to verse 18, it says, for the multitude of the people, even even many of Ephraim, Manasseh, Ashkar, and Zebulun had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover, otherwise that it was written. But King Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Elohim pardon everyone. You see what I'm saying? So all the tribes was there. That's why he sent the letter, and he said that the people escaped the kings of Assyria. And then as you get down, uh, uh, continue to read, and then you get to Second Chronicles 34. This is King Josiah. Under King Josiah, all the tribes does not mention during King Hezekiah time. This is going to be around about 640 BC. You'll see that King Josiah, was dealing with the tribes, the ones that wasn't mentioned in King Hezekiah, his great granddaddy times. And then you get to Second Chronicles 34, verse 6. And so did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simon, even unto Naphtali, with their mattocks round about. You see, so all the tribes was still there, and we was all there doing Jeremiah's time, doing Prophet Jeremiah times. But let's go back to 7 722 BC, when the king of Assyria, took the fighting tribes. And let's look at it. All right, you go to First Chronicles chapter 5. First Chronicles chapter 5, verse 18. And the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, violent men, were able to bear a buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war, were 440,703 score that went out to war. Those are the ones that the king of Assyria needed. That prompt that 10 lost tribe myth that the enemies propagated when we abandoned our heritage to them for the Egyptian religion in the book of Jeremiah. Okay, as you get down to First Chronicles chapter 5, verse 26, you'll see it says, and the Yah of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul of Assyria in the spirit of Talakaplasar, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hela and Habor and Haror into the river Gazan. Okay, those are the people that the Assyrians needed to help them fight. You see, so ain't no Hebrews left Assyria, left Africa, in the promised land, and taken to Assyria, and then vanished down some waterfall and came to Americas and became the natives and the Hispanics and all these old different ethnic groups that don't have no traces of Hebrewness among them. You see what I'm saying? The whole Mexican race was created off the Sephardi's mixing with the natives produced the Mexican race. Okay, the natives come from Siberia, up from Alaska way, and crossed over into the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Long time ago. And ain't no Hebrews left Assyria over here in the heart of the Mesopotamia area, and got over to the Americas with no sheeps and no goats or nothing. See, in the book of Jeremiah, first let's look at something. Let's look at Second Chronicles. I turn right to it. Second Chronicles, chapter 17, verse 24. And we're going to see the word Sepharavim. You see, the word Sepharavim is the Hebrew word for the Sephardi, Sephardi, and Sephardim. They was placed in our land in 722 BC. We abandoned our heritage to them in the book of Jeremiah about 134 years after they was placed. I'm going to go into that. But these are the people who wrote the history outside the Tanakh. You see what I'm saying? They was in all kind of lands. They did trade everywhere. So, it's another history and another science behind them. But in the book of Jeremiah, we abandon our heritage to them. We abandon our heritage to them. And that's one of the reasons we, don't have our history correct. It's because you got two peoples writing history for the Tanakh, the Hebrews of the Tanakh. You got the Hebrew Israelites trying to write their history, and then you got the Jews, the Sephardi groups who we abandon our heritage to, that wrote a history after we abandoned our heritage to them in the book of Jeremiah. See, if you go to chapter 44 in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44, verse 15, chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, you'll see that the whole Hebrew nation said that they wasn't going to do the covenant no more, and that they only wanted Egyptian worship, and everything that was bad happening to us. And the reason the Babylonians come into the land is because we wasn't doing Egyptian worship. It's how throwed off and messed off we was. After the Egyptians killed King Josiah, and after he cleansed the land of that Egyptian worship that Jeroboam had brung out way back in Solomon days to keep the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, throwed off, and the Egyptians came and killed King Josiah after he cleansed the land up from Egyptian worship, and then placed one of his sons on the throne that followed the Egyptian stuff that was weak. And we start following the Egyptian stuff, and that, what the book of Jeremiah is about. And it says, then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women stood by a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt. And Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do soever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. Okay, it was over with. After we went into Africa to worship the Queen of heaven, we never returned home. Is the reason why you have the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those 5 prophets covered that 1% that was taken to Babylon, and they never recorded the Queen of Heaven worshipers coming back out to be with them. We are them. We are the Queen of Heaven worshipers that they, put that stuff on us in the form of Christianity, a religion that a God that our forefathers knew nothing about. In the New Testament stuff, no Hebrews in the New Testament, because the exiles was destroyed, and the people who we abandoned our heritage to, the Sephardi groups, that was their descendants and them in the New Testament. Our last book gonna be Malachi, the book of Malachi, around about 430 BC, and he tell you how it was over with. And then 98 years later, the Greeks rolled up. And then that was start Jewish history. Jewish history continued all the way to today. You see, because our history and heritage was cut off because we said that we wanted to worship the Egyptian religion. And we went into Africa and we was enslaved for that. And one of the curses was to have your whole heritage blotted out for breaking the covenant and be a stranger in a strange land and worship false gods. And that's what happened to us. The curses that Prophet Moses spoke about, chapter 28 of Deuteronomy, about us being taken to Egypt in ships. Well, this is the Egypt. The obelisk, the Cleopatra needle that's in New York is the same obelisk that we would have seen when we was in slavery in Egypt. When we was in bondage in Egypt, we would have seen that same obelisk. Moses would have seen that same obelisk. It's in New York, where the League of Nations at. You know what I'm saying? They in a Central Park. And we are the Hebrew Israelites that ran into the Sahara. Egypt is part of the Sahara in the book of Jeremiah. And that's what caused our enslavement. Plain and simple as that. There never was any 10 lost tribes. If you read 2nd Chronicles chapter 30 under King Hezekiah, you're going to see that all the tribes was there. He was still dealing with the people. And then if you read 2nd Chronicles chapter 34, King Josiah, who it was a prophecy for going all the way back to Solomon, after Solomon's death, when the kingdom split, and how Jeroboam set them golden calves up, where he cleansed the land of the golden calf worship. And the Egyptians got him, and then we went into Africa after that. That's how our history rolled. This the Israelite Brotherhood. It's easy to do Israelite history. Don't listen to them groups. You got to listen and you got to read the Tanakh yourself. You see, and then from your studying, if the history don't line up with it, what others talking about that match the Tanakh, then they history off. Plain and simple as that. These people sound real country and green when you listen to them, and then you know real Hebrew Israelite history that you can prove and show people easily. Whereas no misunderstanding, them folks sound like some country folks trying to be slick in a little country town, and they ain't never been to the big city. It's how they sound. It's how they sound. Real green. Shalom, Hebrews. This the Israelite Brotherhood.